Good morning. You're watching Rajya Sabha television. I'm Smriti Rastogi with breakfast news. In the next 30 minutes, we will get you all the latest developments which happened through the night and the news which is expected in the day ahead. But before that, a quick look at the top headlines. Notification to be issued for vice presidential election today. Polling on August 5th. Notification also for Rajya Sabha biennial election from Goa. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to begin Israel visit. Focus on defense cooperation. Summit-level meetings with Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu. Indian Army says no bulldozers used by Chinese soldiers to destroy its bunkers. Beijing calls Indian Army's action in Sikkim betrayal of earlier position. Special session of Jammu and Kashmir Assembly to discuss GST. 22 states abolish check post after GST rollout. And shock exit for Stan Wawrinka at the Wimbledon. Rafael Nadal, Andy Murray through to next round. Petra Kvitova and Simona Halep also reach round 2. NDA's presidential nominee Ramnath Kovind arrived in Hyderabad today to drum up support for his candidature from legislators in Telangana for the July 17th polls. During the day-long visit, he is expected to meet MPs and MLAs of the ruling TRS, opposition BJP and Telangana TDP. While the TDP is a constituent of the NDA, the TRS has announced support for Kovind's candidature. Kovind is also likely to meet YSR chief Vice Jagan Mohan Reddy. After the nomination last month, Kovind has been visiting various states as part of his campaign for the top constitutional post. Notification will be issued today for the vice presidential election that is slated to take place on August 5th. The last date for making a nomination for the polls is July 18th. The last date for withdrawal of candidature is July 21st. Rajya Sabha General Secretary Shamsher K. Sharif will also be the returning officer for the election. In the vice presidential election, a candidate requires 20 proposers and 20 seconders who should be the members of the parliament. Members of the parliament will use special pens for marking their choice. No whip can be issued by political parties as the election is through a secret ballot. Term of the present incumbent Mohammad Hamid Ansari, who has held the post for 2 consecutive terms, is coming to an end on 10th of August. Notification will also be issued for the Rajya Sabha biennial election from Goa. The term of office of Shantaram Naik in Rajya Sabha, representing the state of Goa, is due to expire on July 28th. The last date of making nomination for the election is July 11th and the scrutiny will take place on July 12th. The last date for withdrawal of candidature is July 14th. The polling, if necessary, will take place on July 21st and counting will take place on the same day. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will leave for a 3-day visit to Israel today. This will be the first visit of any Indian Prime Minister to Israel since the establishment of diplomatic ties in 1992. A host of agreements are expected, especially in the areas of defense and science and technology.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Israel from July 4th to July 6th will be a closely watched one, when he will meet President Reuven Rivlin and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
First of all, Israel is welcoming Prime Minister Modi with a lot of love, enthusiasm and expectation for what will be a very important, a landmark visit in the long history of Indo-Israel relations.
On Wednesday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will hold a summit-level meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu. Defense cooperation will be one of the major elements of this visit.
Israel and India have a very strong relationship in many fields. Defense is definitely one of the fields. We enjoy very much the different aspects of this relationship. But usually, as you know, we don't talk too much about defense.
Besides defence, the visit is also intended to upgrade the overall relations between the two nations in fields like agriculture, science and technology.
We have a wide range of cooperation, starting from agriculture, water, science and technology, education, innovation, now the startups, entrepreneurship, so joint research, joint innovation fund. So it is a very wide-ranging partnership. And so it is, we want to bring a definite shape and advance this cooperation into several areas.
Cooperation on fight against terrorism will also be a key element on the agenda. In the Mumbai attack, Pakistani terrorists had attacked the Israeli center and Israel feels no action has been taken on the perpetrators. This being a standalone visit, Prime Minister Modi will not visit Palestine. The Palestinian president has already visited India and held extensive talks with Prime Minister Modi on issues relating to mutual interests. Akhilesh Suman's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
On to some more news. A special session of the Jammu and Kashmir State Legislature will resume today. The 5-day session from July 4th to 8th will discuss the implementation of the GST in the state after reservations raised by opposition parties over the issue. The session has been called again as a no consensus was evolved over the GST in the 2 meetings of the all-party consultative group, which was set up by the government and comprised members of opposition and ruling parties. Union Minister Jitendra Singh exuded confidence, saying that GST will be implemented in the next 3 to 4 days. Meanwhile, various trade organizations along with civil society groups in Jammu and Kashmir have formed a coordination committee to oppose the implementation of the GST in the state in its present form. Jammu and Kashmir is the only state where GST rollout has not taken place. As many as 22 states, including Delhi, West Bengal and Maharashtra, have abolished checkposts within 3 days of the implementation of goods and services tax. According to the Finance Ministry, 8 states, including Assam, Punjab, Himachal Pradesh and some northeastern states, are also in the process of abolishing checkposts. State border checkposts scrutinize material and location-based tax compliance, resulting in delays in delivery of goods and cause environment pollution as trucks queue up for clearance. One of the key objectives of the GST, which came into effect from July 1st, was to make India a single market where goods and services can flow seamlessly. The other important states which have abolished the checkpost include Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Haryana, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Kerala and Tamil Nadu. With the abolition of checkposts, the long queues often witnessed at the state borders will not be seen. Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi hit out at the NDA government over the GST. In a series of tweets, Rahul Gandhi accused the centre of being insensitive towards most vulnerable sections of the society by imposing a disability tax on the wheelchairs and braille typewriters. Demanding a full rollback of GST on the disability aids, Rahul Gandhi said that the tax will impose further hardships on the people with disabilities. The GST on braille typewriters and papers, carriages for the disabled and wheelchairs and other devices have been fixed at rates varying between 5 to 18%. After the GST rollout, the retailers and traders are under huge loss due to their backlog of old stocks. Moreover, they are unable to manage their work due to technical difficulties and complicated tax scheme.
Greater Kailash's M Block market, one of Delhi's most prominent retail markets. Rajiv Goyal, who owns an electronics item store here, is a confused and anxious man these days. He says that the new taxation system, GST, has changed things, which will require additional spending on hiring computer operators as well as the services of software companies and chartered accountants. He says the loss incurred on the old stock has made things worse.
ना कोई हमें माल दे रहा है, ना हम सेल कर रहे हैं. इनपुट आउटपुट दोनों रुकी हुई हैं अभी. जो पुराना माल है वो हम किस रेट पे बेचेंगे ये हमें पता नहीं. हमारे सीए को भी नहीं पता कि वो किस रेट पे बेचना है, क्योंकि डिफरेंस आ गया 5 से 28% का. इससे बेस्ट है हम तो महीने 2 महीने देखेंगे. अगर हमारे को नहीं समझ में आएगा तो आउट कर देंगे, माल दुकान को बंद कर देंगे.
Shopkeepers across the city share Goyal's plight. Most traders have no knowledge about indirect taxes. They do not have accountants, neither CAs, and most of them work with cash. From filing returns to old stock, confusion persists. Their common complaint is that they do not have the necessary information on GST and there is no infrastructure for it.
हमारे पास प्रोडक्ट्स इतने हैं रिटेल के अंदर कि हमें हर प्रोडक्ट का अलग अलग कोड है, अलग अलग कोड डालना पड़ेगा, अदरवाइज़ हमें उसका रिफंड नहीं मिलेगा GST का। तो सबसे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम तो इस समय कोड्स की है और परसेंटेज की है। बहुत सारी आइटमों के परसेंटेज ही नहीं पता लग रहे हैं कौन सी आइटम कितने परसेंट में है।
बस हमारे पास GST नंबर आया है और बस हमें पता है कि हमारे को ये आइटम इतने परसेंट पे आई है, मगर वो परफॉर्मा कोई नहीं आया, कैसे बेचनी है, तो कैसे टैक्स इनपुट करना है, आउटपुट लेना है, कुछ नहीं पता।
Retail businesses come under the service sector, which contributes 60% to the country's GDP. There are about 10 million small traders and shopkeepers, most of whom are uneducated. And GST's entire foundation is based on technology. However, business associations expect the government to clear this confusion soon.
फिलहाल अगर देखा जाए तो प्रैक्टिकल जो ट्रेडर्स हैं थोड़े घबराए हुए हैं और उनको भी समझ नहीं आ रही है कि ये किस तरह होगा, कैसे होगा और कब होगा। बट आहिस्ता आहिस्ता जब समझ आ जाएगी, ये समझा देंगे, तो मुझे लगता है ये बहुत सरल और इजी हो जाएगा।
Shoppers directly connected to consumers want to be ready for GST. The role of retail business is crucial to the success of the taxation system and to bring the benefits of low tax to the consumers. In such a scenario, it is possible to achieve the goal of tax reform by alerting shopkeepers to the complex process of GST. Pranav Goswami's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
On to the latest news from Jammu and Kashmir. The body of a third terrorist has been recovered from Bamnu area of Kashmir's Pulwama district. On Monday, 2 militants were killed and 6 civilians critically injured in the encounter. The encounter took place during a search operation undertaken by the security forces. Following information about the presence of militants, the search operation is underway to flush the remaining terrorists out. Meanwhile, India has hit out at Pakistan over the brazen admission by Hizbul terrorist Syed Salahuddin for perpetrating terror attacks on India. Reacting strongly, India said his confession of assistance from Pakistan was a proof of Islamabad's policy of cross-border terrorism. The Ministry of External Affairs has also said that his confession also affirms the complicity of Pakistan's state structure in using terrorist proxies as a matter of policy against neighbours. The emir demanded that Pakistan must give up its policy of cross-border terrorism, fulfill its obligations under international resolutions and stop all activities of terrorists from territory under Pakistan's control. Salahuddin, also the chief of internationally designated terrorist organization Hizbul Mujahideen, was declared a specially designated global terrorist by the US Department of State last week during the visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. In an interview to the Pakistani television channel, Salahuddin said that he can strike anytime, anywhere in India, and that it was easy for him to get weapons in Pakistan for these terror strikes. And with that, time for a very short break. More news and updates on the other side. Stay with us.
The story we thought we knew. The story of magnificence. The story of bloody battles. Of those who ruled and those who left their footprints. The story charting the course of our past. Talking history on Rajya Sabha TV.
The ongoing verbal spat between China and India has escalated, with Beijing calling the Indian Army's action of stopping Chinese troops from constructing a road near Sikkim as a betrayal of the position taken by successive Indian governments. Chinese Foreign Ministry said that the Sino-India border in the Sikkim sector is well demarcated and that Indian troops must pull back from the area. The war of words between India and China escalated on Monday, with the Chinese Foreign Ministry dismissing Defence Minister Arun Jaitley's remarks that India of 2017 is different from what it was in 1962. In its response, Beijing said that China too is different and will take all necessary measures to safeguard its territorial sovereignty. Beijing also said that Indian Army's action to stop Chinese troops from constructing a road in an area near Sikkim was a betrayal of the position taken by successive Indian governments.
印度总理尼赫鲁在给周恩来总理的信中表示，印度的保护国西金同中国西藏地方的边界是由1890年的英中条约所确定。
Calling the incident very serious, China said that India must respect the 1890 treaty and pull back troops immediately from Dokala. Chinese Foreign Ministry said that the Sino-India border in the Sikkim sector was well demarcated and that India violated the existing convention on the boundary and basic principle of international law by entering into the Chinese territory.
此次印军越界事件 发生在中印边界西金段已定的边界，这与以往双方边防部队在未定界地区的边境摩擦对峙有本质的不同。
The Indian Army meanwhile said that no bulldozers were used when its bunkers were destroyed by the Chinese army. The two countries have been engaged in a standoff in the Dokala area near Bhutan Tri-Junction for almost a month in what has been the longest such impasse between the two armies since 1962. Due to the ongoing tension, China has closed the Nathula route in Sikkim for Kailash Mansarovar pilgrims from India. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. The Home Ministry on Monday saw a detailed report from the West Bengal government over the law and order situation in Darjeeling. The move comes after the state government has asked the centre to recall 100 women paramilitary personnel deployed in the hills. This is for the second time that the centre has sought a report from the state on Darjeeling. Earlier in the day, the state government extended the restriction imposed on internet services for 8 more days in hills. The Gorkha Janmukti Morcha supporters also held a massive protest outside the district magistrate's office in the hill town, which is witnessing an indefinite strike since June 15th. Meanwhile, Gorkha Janmukti Morcha has once again requested the central government to conduct a dialogue over the separate state.
केंद्र सरकार को गोरखालैंड का ऊपर डायलॉग करना चाहिए क्योंकि आज आप देख रहा है छोटा छोटा बच्चा भी स्ट्रीट्स में है सब गोरखालैंड डिमांड कर रहा है हाँ बंगाल में हम लोग सुरक्षित नहीं है गोरखालैंड चाहिए हाँ ये पीपल्स एस्पिरेशन है इसको रेस्पेक्ट करना चाहिए केंद्र को गोरखालैंड का ऊपर अब सीधा बातचीत करना चाहिए हम लोग का ये 1 पॉइंट एजेंडा है.
Let's take a look at some more national developments and nationwide. External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj on Monday held talks with Nepal's Deputy Prime Minister Krishna Bahadur Mahara in a first high-level interaction between the two countries after Sher Bahadur Deuba government assumed power. Discussions were held on a wide range of bilateral matters of mutual interest, including Nepal's governmental efforts to take all stakeholders on board in the constitution implementation process. The flood situation across Imphal Valley in Manipur continued to remain grim, with heavy showers leading to waterlogging in Imphal East and Thoubal districts. Damaged banks of Imphal and Kongba rivers have left hundreds without shelter in the districts, particularly in Lilong area. Also, 2 more persons have died in the flood situation in Assam worsened on Monday, with nearly 3.55 lakh people being affected by the deluge across 13 districts in the state. A high-level panel set up by the Chhattisgarh government has dismissed former Chief Minister Ajit Jogi's claim of being a tribal, following which his caste certificate has been revoked. Ajit Jogi's MLA son Amit has termed the move politically motivated, claiming that the report was prepared not by the high-powered but by the CM-powered committee. The controversy over Ajit Jogi's tribal status has been a political issue in the state since 2001. Malaria cases continue to rise in the national capital with 125 cases reported this season, while chikungunya has affected 153 people, according to a municipal report released on Monday, while the number of dengue cases recorded till July 1st has touched nearly 100. Of the total number of malaria cases, 63 of the affected people were the residents of Delhi, while the rest of the infection cases diagnosed were traced to other states. 41 cases in the city were reported last month. France's new president, Emmanuel Macron, has proposed a radical change in the country's government. Speaking at the historic Palace of Versailles, Macron said he planned to cut the number of lawmakers by the third. The French president added that he has a broad mandate after sweeping wins in presidential and parliamentary elections this year. He further added that he would seek direct approval from voters in a referendum if Parliament failed to sign off his intended institutional reforms quickly enough. The proposed cuts would reduce the number of National Assembly members from 577 to 385 and the number of Senate members from 348 to 232.
Que nous laissons la France sans défense face au terrorisme et de l'autre que nous bradons nos libertés. Eh bien, rien de tout cela n'est vrai. Derrière tous ces faux procès, on trouve le même vice. Le vice qui empoisonne depuis trop longtemps le débat public.
After Saudi Arabia and its allies on Monday extended by 48 hours the deadline for Qatar to accept their list of demands to lift a de facto blockade, Qatar has finally responded. Officials in Doha said that they were still bracing for a fresh round of economic sanctions from the Arab states that are blockading it. 10 days after Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Bahrain and UAE delivered a 13-point ultimatum to the small Gulf state, the Emir of Qatar responded with a handwritten letter addressed to Kuwait, which is trying to mediate in the crisis. The letter has not been made public, but it is believed to be in the line with Qatar's past statements on the crisis, where it offered to negotiate but said it would not meet all the 13 demands. The UN Security Council also told Qatar to sort out its differences with its Gulf neighbors, but it won't be interfering in the dispute. Meanwhile, the German foreign minister, who is on a tour to the Gulf region, said that the standoff between Qatar and its Arab neighbors would best be solved by an agreement across the region to prevent the financing of terrorism.
Wenn man sich vorstellt, was die beste Lösung wäre, die herauskommen kann aus diesem Konflikt, dann glaube ich, eine gemeinschaftliche Verabredung über die Beendigung jedweder Unterstützung für terroristische oder extremistische Organisationen.
The Qataris have made some progress, but certainly not sufficient progress to be satisfactory. There have been also other developments that occurred between 2014 and today in terms of Qatar's involvement in the affairs of the neighboring countries, in terms of its harboring of designated financiers of terror who operate openly in Qatar.
Fierce clashes and rising number of suicide attacks have been reported in Mosul as Iraqi troops try to recapture the city from Islamic State militants. The last IS-held quarter, known as the Old City, was rocked by airstrikes and artillery salvos, with local commanders expecting to retake full control soon. However, they are facing more suicide attacks, including several from female bombers, in the battle's final phase. The major offensive against IS in Mosul was launched in October 2016. Thousands of Iraqis, security forces, Kurdish fighters, Sunni Arab tribesmen and Shia militiamen, assisted by US-led coalition warplanes and military advisors, are involved in the operation. The government announced the full liberation of eastern Mosul in January 2017, but the west of the city has presented a more difficult challenge. North Korea launched a ballistic missile on Monday, the first such test since President Donald Trump and his South Korean counterpart Moon Jae-in agreed to put more pressure on the country to come to the negotiating table. The missile took off from Bangyeon airfield in the northwestern town of Gyeongsang and flew 578 miles before landing in the sea between North Korea and Japan. It was the first missile test by the North Korea since it launched land-to-sea cruise missiles off its coast on June 8th. The launch occurred hours before Independence Day began in United States. Under a series of United Nations Security Council resolution, North Korea is banned from developing or testing ballistic missiles. And let's take a look at the developments from across the world in World Wrap. 10 people have been taken to the hospital with injuries of varying severity after a taxi drove into people on Boston's Logan Airport. The driver jumped the curb and struck fellow cab drivers who were sitting awaiting their next fares. While the driver told police he mistakenly stepped out on the accelerator instead of brake, US police does not believe it to be an intentional act. 9 people were killed and almost 40 others, including women and young men, were kidnapped after an attack in southeastern Niger by suspected members of Boko Haram. The gunmen attacked a village in Kablewa town near the southwestern Niger city of Diffa, close to the Nigerian border, and killed 8 young people and an elderly man. The attack was the second such incident in the village in a week. The death toll in Pakistan's oil tanker explosion rose to 206 on Monday as 3 more persons injured in one of the worst fire accidents in the country succumbed to their injuries. 6 officials, including DSP level officer, were suspended for negligence that led to the incident. The tragedy marked a grim start to Eid, the celebrations closing the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. Bangladesh's Supreme Court, in a landmark verdict on Monday, declared void a 2014 constitutional amendment empowering Parliament to impeach apex court judges, a ruling which the government said could undermine the sovereign parliament's authority. The verdict came amid a visible conflict between Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's ruling Awami League government and the Supreme Court over the apex court jurisdiction and disciplining lower judiciary judges. In tennis, world number 1 Andy Murray began the defense of his Wimbledon title with a straight set win over Kazakhstan's Alexander Bublik. Murray won 6-1, 6-4, 6-2 despite a hip injury which disrupted his build-up to the tournament. The 30-year-old will next face German's Dustin Brown, the man who beat Rafael Nadal in 2015 in round 2. French Open winner Rafael Nadal also began his campaign with a straight-set victory. Spanish world number 2 Nadal beat Australian John Millman 6-1, 6-3, 6-2. The win was the 850th of Nadal's career and came in his 50th match at Wimbledon. He will next face American world number 43 Donald Young. However, 5th seed Stan Wawrinka was knocked out by Daniil Medvedev in the biggest shock on day 1. The 32-year-old Wawrinka needed ice on a knee injury between points as he fell to 6-4, 3-6, 6-4, 6-1 loss. World number 20 Nick Kyrgios also failed to reach round 2 after retiring from his opening match because of a hip injury. In women's singles, 5-time champion Venus Williams booked a second-round spot with a 7-6, 6-4 win over Belgium's Elise Mertens. Second seed Simona Halep also raced through the victory with 6-4, 6-1 win over New Zealander Marina Jurkovic. Halep broke her opponent's serve 5 times during the match that lasted an hour and 13 minutes. Petra Kvitova, who is playing only her 3rd event of the year after recovering from a knife attack in December, also reached second round after beating Joanna Larsson 6-3, 6-4. In another match, British 6th seed Konta secured a 6-2, 6-2 victory against Chinese Taipei's Hirsch Wu Wei. From a cricket captain, Ravi Shastri has formally applied for the top job of the Team India's coach. Shastri was the director of the team between 2015 to 2016. He had also applied for the job last year. losing out to Kumble in the end. Kumble resigned as coach of the Indian cricket team last week. 5 applicants had so far approached the BCCI, which includes Dora Ganesh, Lal Chand Rajput, Virendra Sehwag, Richard Pybus and Tom Moody. The interviews will be conducted on 10th of July by the Cricket Advisory Committee comprising Saurav Ganguly, VVS Lakshman and Sachin Tendulkar. And that's what we have for you in this edition of Breakfast News. Keep watching Rajya Sabha television.